All right, thank you very much. I think time actually does make a lot of difference. I've been in Kenya now for like 3 years and 4 months, and my name pronunciation has improved greatly. Initially, people murder it. I've been called Lanre, Lanre, Lando. At some point, once there's hell there, and it also really, sad for me because I work in a bank that has, a lot of Kikuyu people. And I've come to realize that they have problem with L and R, and my name has 5 letters with a L and a R. So the first person that I had to sit down and educate was the group chief executive officer, James Mwangi. Then it was Polycarp and Gate. I had to sit them down and say, by the time you guys can call it right, everybody kind of, And today I'm happy that, I'm here and just call my son name without killing me. And you need to understand one thing about where I come from. Our name speaks a lot about who we are. Your name is meant to edify who you are. Like Lanre means your words continue to grow. Bamisebi, I will come to that some other time. All right, so I'm here to talk about, can you remind me what the topic is? Open banking. Right, so one of the things that happen when you get to being at executive level is your presentation are obviously made for you by a group of guys. They sit down in the room and they make presentation for you. Then they are meant to have a prep a day before the presentation to tell you this is what's going to happen. But unfortunately, because of my schedule, sometimes I miss those prep. This is one of those times, yeah? So I'm seeing this presentation just as you're saying it. Right? So please don't crucify me on that. All right, so I'm talking about, but the good thing is, we're talking about API and open banking. And Ian didn't mention, I'm also the MD for FinServe Africa, and we are one of the sponsors of this event. Can you please give us a good round of applause? All right, so if this thing would move, I will start my presentation. This one is moving, but this one is not. And I've not seen the presentation, so I need to see this stuff. Unless you want to see an African man cry. All right, so talking about open banking, what is open banking? The best way to describe open banking is you have a man who for the past 10 years has been gathering data about his customers, understand their names, their surnames, their numbers, the kind of transaction that they do, everything about those customers. They've been taking it for the past 35 years. I'm talking about banks generally. In fact, for the past 100 years, they've been taking those information, and they have those information in their database. And, you find out that the banks actually have, they actually have most of the information, your banking transaction, the day you open your bank account. They have so much information, even for sometimes they find it difficult to even understand the information that they have. Let me give you how important those data are. There was a scenario that happened, I think it was with Amazon, when they understand the data of this customer well enough to know that once you go to browse on something, they have an idea of what you want to buy. Have you ever seen that thing that happened that you're trying to check up a phone, and the next thing you open on Facebook, and you see phones? Yeah? Does it happen to every one of you? So sometimes they get it right, sometimes they get it wrong. So one of the scenarios where they got it wrong was a man who has a child, 18-year-old girl, and Amazon just popped on the dad's screen that, congratulations, your daughter is going to have a baby. And the man hysterically left work, got home, and called the daughter. Hey, come. Doctor as well. What's happening here? And they realized that she wasn't having a baby. But what had happened was the man was trying to get a gift for someone, so they assume because they use the same account that it was the daughter that was browsing, and because she's a girl and she's about that age, they assume that she's looking for, sanitary for kids. Naturally, she's about to have a baby. So sometimes data get it wrong. So now, I'm trying to build a context here about the fact that banks have a lot of data. Now, banks have been sitting on this data for a very long time. And, in the UK, they decided that they need to be open banking, whereby for us to innovate, that data needs to be available to everyone, right? Not just banking data, just inter-sharing of data. Now, open banking basically is running on what we call APIs. So basically what happened is you have a program that is trying to, let's say I want to start a business and I want to do authentication. I want to know that you are who you say you are. So what that means is you have to start by getting every customer's data, right? You can imagine how long it will take you to do that. The banks have been taking that for hundreds of years. So with open banking, all you need to do is integrate with the bank's API, and you'll be able to consume the bank's data. Now, it's good for every one of you, but not so good for the banks. But again, the bank didn't know that the data never belonged to them. It belonged to the customer. So that was a paradigm change. Because it's my data, it's my information, it's my account that I've been running. It's not yours. If I open my bank account today with you, I want those data out of your system, right? That's what we call data privacy. So, my presentation today, which I'm seeing for the first time, has introduction, key consideration, developing a launch plan. You see, sometimes when I present this thing, I see the staff that made it. This one I can see Mutoni. I know she's the one that did this. All right, so basically what we're saying is, in the introduction, I've talked about the paradigm change. Who actually owns the data? That's the problem here. The data never belonged to the bank in the first place. I'm surprised, I'm an executive with the bank, so I'm here telling you that we don't hold the data belongs to the customers. But for years, we've assumed that we own the data. But with data privacy, we know that we don't. So the customer can tell us how he or she wants to use the data. So that's the first thing. I'm going to talk about the benefits of open banking, which there are enormous benefits. Then, of course, we'll look at some of the disadvantages, like every other thing. I've not seen anything that has an advantage without a disadvantage. Anybody? What? Some people said water. But I remember when I was 7 years old, I had a bet with a friend of mine that I could drink the most water. I was admitted for 4 days in the hospital because I had so much water. I drowned. Do you know you can actually drown drinking water? Yeah, I did as a 6-year-old. So anything, anybody, something that doesn't have a disadvantage. I just thought of one, but I want you to guess. Anybody? Sorry? What? You said life? You said somebody just said life? You're kidding me, right? You know those people that go to places and kill people? They can kill, so that's not. Anybody? I just thought of one now that has no disadvantage, I think. Anybody? If nobody knows, then I might be a genius. Write that down. I just discovered that I'm a genius. Anybody? Give me one disadvantage of the air we breathe. One disadvantage of the air we breathe. Say that again. No, come on. It's not the air that's packing the jam. The jam attached to the hair, dude. All right, so that's one. So basically, we are going to look at disadvantages of. But thank you very much for that. And what's the name? John. Nice. So then we're going to develop how do you launch an open plan, an open API. And as you continue to discover, like I'm discovering the presentation, we'll continue to go along. The paradigm shift, I already spoke about that. Customers is the owner of the data. And for a very long time, when we sit in banks to develop a solution, guess who sit there? Is the head of product, is the head of technology, and we just assume we understand what the customer wants. Right? But the fintech have made us understand that actually it's the customer that determines what they want. Right? Sometimes I'll give you how banks used to work before now. Imagine going to Carrefour or which other one is there? Quick Mart, yes. And you get in and you take your basket. Then as you're walking in, it's bald. It needs a hair cream. Boom. They put it there. You get that? The way it's walking is as if it's not eating. So they put some meals in your bag, right? Well, his size, it doesn't look like a very tall guy. So they do your shopping on your behalf. You understand what I mean? It's not you going into the shop and picking what you want, right? So what they've done is to provide for you shelves with different things that you can pick. But when you go to a bank, they tell you, open a current account, a savings account, and an investment account. So basically, they're telling you how to run your life. And that's not the way it should work, right? So bankers have discovered that we need to be able to use data to be able to determine. So for example, I'll give you a very good use case. We have people that we call SMEs. You know them? 80% of you, even though you have your day job. But everybody in Kenya is an SME owner, small, medium business. If you don't have a farmer, then you're dead, right? If you don't have a farm, you either have a salon somewhere or you have a nail studio somewhere, but we all have that side hustles, right? Right? Who doesn't have a side hustle here? If you don't get one, it's important. So we all have a side hustle. So what happened typically in a bank is you have Mr. Hey, John, who has opened an account when he was 18, and he's been working hard, he's been doing stuff. He has 2 or 3 side hustles. But Mr. John has transited from being an individual to an SME, right? And at some point, he now has like 4 farms, one in Nakuru, you know all those places. Now he's transit from an SME to what? To a corporate, right? That information is somewhere. It's in the data, right? But unless you mine it, you won't know. If you go to the bank data, you still see Mr. John as an individual, but Mr. John has actually evolved. So that's what banks are doing now, using data to look at the evolution of customers, to be able to place them where they ought to be in the bank. And we've been able to do that. We're doing that. We're in Equity Bank, and some other banks are doing it as well. So paradigm shift 1, new value and models. API-based had made it easy for there to be new different values. Let's backtrack 10 years ago. You want to start a business, a payment business. The first thing you need to get is a server engineer, right? You need to get physical servers, you need to get all those things. But today, you just click onto the cloud, and you want customer data. You get an API to a bank, you get the customer's data, and then the rest is history. So your authentication can be done by the bank, right? So those are some of the new model that is arriving because of this. Now, we want to talk about the benefit of data sharing, which is what open banking is about. It's sharing data with yourselves. So, one of the benefits is customer experience. We realize now lately customer experience has actually changed. You go to a shop, you can do your shopping, things are happening at the flip of a button. We now use mobile to do almost everything. There is mobile of things. You can use Siri to make conversations. Mobile has disrupted everything. And this is happening because of the evolution of open banking and API. Then increased profitability. I mentioned at the last meeting we had that over $744 million had come into Africa in just about a year from investors in fintech. So that means there's profit in open banking. The other one is aggregation of customer accounts. This I've always had a problem with. If you were to stop a typical person to say, how much do you have? They have X amount in their M-Pesa account. They have some money in their Equity Bank account. They have another set of money in another bank elsewhere. But you see, if you have open banking, you can aggregate all your wealth into a personalized banking and say, this is the total of what I have, and this is the total of my liability. And that's some of the things that you get from aggregation of accounts. And open banking make that very, very possible. The other thing that is not here is that's the difference between me and the people that present this. I kind of know some of those things. It's things like credit scoring. Right? What is credit scoring? We all sit here, and the problem is people want to lend money to people, right? So the problem is always you lend money to Mokwana, you realize as you're lending him the money, he's marrying another wife. And that typically happened in my country. I don't know about Kenya. Now, so basically what you do with that is you understand the credit scoring of these people based on their behavior. The last time you took money, did they return the money? Right? So based on the credit scoring, you can give people marks and be able to, to say, okay, this person will pay back if you give him money. So you'll be able to give them loans based on that. And that's some of the advantage of sharing data. There are some use cases. N2Wise. A very good use case is what we are doing in FinServe with the way we are trying to integrate with different organizations to be able to share data with them and be able to do transactions. So, for example, you connect to our API at FinServe, and you have access. So for example, you're a merchant. You're just setting up a merchant business, and the first thing you want to do is you want people to be able to make payment to you in whichever way they want, whether it's cards, whether it's linked, however they want to do it. But now, imagine if you as the merchant, you have to engage all the banks, to get connection to them. So that means there's a lot of integration you have to do. And for these integrations, there's a lot of cost to it. So we can come up to the FinServe, for example, API, and you already have access to all the banks. So those are some of the use cases. The other one is Cash App, futuristic use. I'll give you an example. We have instances where we give people loan in the bank, and the loan is sitting on their collateral, right? Collateral is what you use to get a loan. So let's assume, for the sake of it, we had borrowed a company, a group money in a particular place in Kenya, and that's where they have all their farms and their properties. And that place, there is, an upsurge of war or something going on there. Obviously, the value of a house, if somebody were to tell you today that, oh, by the way, there's a mansion in Ukraine and it's $20,000, how eager will you be to buy it? Probably not. But if that has happened 6 months ago, or maybe like a year ago, you will have jumped on it, right? They never knew the war was coming, but the war is there. So, but the information about the war has been coming all along. People have been reading newspapers. Now, if you have a very good system that can take all this information, you'll be able to know that this place, the collateral might be decreased. Am I making sense here? All right, so those are some of the use cases then, of course, we have instances where I wear this smart wearable, where insurance companies now will say they can reduce your premium if they realize that on a regular basis you're doing the right thing. You're exercising, you're not smoking, you're not drinking. So based on that, they can see how they can reduce your premium as against somebody who doesn't do any exercise. Because the theory is, unless you get into an accident or a plane crash, if you live well, you will live long, right? Okay, I think I have, how many more minutes? 2 minutes. All right, so I'll try to round up. Disadvantages, of course, detached connection. As we grow and it's everywhere around us because of open banking, because of technology, we are disconnected, right? It's areas like this that make us to see one another. I've seen people here that worked with me in equity or FinServe I have not seen in 3 years, right? That's how disconnected we are as a people. So all these things are making us disconnected more and more. You see, somebody's birthday is on Facebook, and people are celebrating that, but the guy is actually somewhere, lonely somewhere, hoping that he meets friends. So we are all disconnected because of all this connectivity. The other one is cybersecurity, which I won't go too much into. Then there is third-party risk. So, for example, a small fintech in Uganda connected to a couple of banks in Uganda, and that cost the whole economy of Uganda about $4 million. Because that fintech, it's almost like you're riding on a giant, but you yourself, you don't have the risk, the prerequisite security to make sure that you can withstand it. So once you connect, you take the risk of all the fintech that you connect to. And some potential use cases, I've already mentioned risk, financial product aggregation, non-product aggregation, real-time NPL management, I mentioned that. You can know a loan that is not performing, by looking at the transaction that they do. And the other one is some of the key consideration. If you're trying to get into open banking, you need to look at the Data Protection Act, see where you can use the data and how you can use the data. Regulation and compliance, customer at the center, always very important. Is the customer that owns the data, and you need to get the right and the permission of the customers to use the data. Then, of course, interoperability. Interoperability is when all of us can make payments. So, for example, today, you realize that you go to a merchant and you want to make payment, and they tell you they only take M-Pesa, right? But you have other means of payment. Interoperability is for you to be able to make payment, irrespective of whether you have a cellular Tigo or you have whatever it is. You can make payment. That is what you call interoperability. Now, to launch one, you need to develop your core capabilities. That's your legal framework. You need the talent. There's a lot of talent war in Kenya right now, but you still have to get your talent. Then there's technology. You need to design your customer expectation and their experience. Then you can manage and launch your open banking. So basically, you sit there and say to yourself, what data do the bank have that I need to use for what I want to do? And once you understand that, you can set up your development, and that you connect to the bank, and you have open banking. Opportunities, monetization, I've mentioned that. There's a lot of money for the bank because the bank can sell the APIs, and the fintech can also use the API to generate revenue. Oh, yeah. Ooh. Thank you very much.